Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and this is the #1 show. I'm going to put these out every so often, talking about brand new first issues very briefly, and the first one I want to talk about today is Batman Kings of Fear #1. A doctor at Arkham Asylum questions Batman's fitness for crime fighting when he beats up the Joker and returns him to the asylum, suggesting that he causes more problems than he solves, and Batman goes on to prove her point when he takes on several more of the major who's who in his rogues gallery, including Riddler, Killer Croc, and Mr. Freeze, by punching them in the face. And that's pretty much what they're there for this issue, just to get punched in the face. She says that Batman is at least somewhat culpable for his villain's behavior because he keeps the vicious cycle going. And Joker validates her argument with a long diatribe in the Batmobile, saying that his motivation for his latest horrific scheme is the dance he does with Batman. If there was no Batman, there would be no dance, and no villains whose mad plots revolve around their obsession with him. By the end of the issue, Batman ignores this evaluation and goes after the Scarecrow, who has hostages, but maybe he should have left well enough alone this time. Sound familiar? Yeah, it did to me too. This series is a throwback to Kelly Jones' ultra-stylized, gothic, and splashy Batman work of the 90s, and it reads like a story written before the copious number of Batman stories that have explored the culture of madness he might inadvertently perpetuate with his after-hours activities. If we're doing the same song and dance again, it should feel fresh in some way. Peterson should have some new angle or spin on it. And so far, it doesn't just look like a celebration of mid-90s comics, it looks like a book I might have read before. Not just a familiar book, like if I wasn't looking at a thing I knew came out last week, I'd be checking to see if it was a reprint of a comic I actually read when I was a kid, like one of those Marvel True Believers one-shots. Nostalgia is clearly the name of the game here, and if you have no access whatsoever to Kelly Jones' earlier work and you want to relive it, put this miniseries on your pull list. It's definitely authentic, to a fault, if you ask me. Jones hasn't changed a bit. His bulky Batman with the long ears and the almost contorted facial expressions are just like I remember them, and he's still using those varied and erratic panel layouts. I love his Batsuit, but I never cared for his human faces. His Joker, in particular, is inconsistent and sometimes outright bizarre, which might be intentional, reflecting his personality, but I can't tell. He's at his best when he's drawing panels of Batman leaping into action, taking up a panel or a splash page all by himself. Peterson, who wrote the infamous Batman game Dark Tomorrow, uses the Arkham Doctor and the Joker to make a case against Batman and his friends, but I don't know how Batman feels about this, unless he's just in massive denial and won't listen to reason. The Doctor might put too much of the blame at his boots, but when so many of your enemies hurt people because they're trying to get a rise out of you, you have to ask whether Gotham is better off without that constant cycle. But Batman says he isn't to blame any more than she is for patients not being cured, which is kind of flippant and overly simplified. He stubbornly ignores it all and goes about his business as usual, refusing to change as he so often does. But here, he strikes me as out of touch, and I'm not really sympathizing with him. Joker says he's too introspective, and that men of action, like the two of them, or men of reaction, he says, I like that, shouldn't think too much. But if Batman is thinking better of how he's conducting himself, I can't tell, as I never get in his head. He's completely distanced from the reader, not unlike Tim Burton's Batman. Perhaps his stubbornness and unwillingness to change or even open up to someone is what the story will be about, but it reads too typical for me to get excited about reading the next issue. Jones is doing what he does best, and there are a couple action pages littered with panels that are wonderfully dynamic and moody, but I'm filing this one squarely in the wait for trade category. Thanks so much for watching this quick review. Lots more coming your way here on Geekvolution. If you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/Geekvolution and become a patron for just $2 a month. That gets you early access to Superhero Rewind, Count and Crypto Freaks, and also our twice-monthly Patreon exclusive, uncensored talk show, Geekvolution After Dark. We appreciate everybody. Thanks again for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and I'll see you again soon.